You just heard a C augmented chord. Augmented chords are written in notation with a plus symbol next to the chord letter. You may also see them written with AUG or sharp 5 next to the chord letter. How do we construct the augmented chords? Chords are created by using notes from a scale. We will use the major scale, also known as the Ionian mode, for our point of reference in this video. Major chords are created with 3 notes, first, third and fifth. To create an augmented chord, we take these 3 notes and raise the 5th note by half a step or a semitone. This gives us first, third and sharp 5th. Let's clarify this with an example. The C major scale has the following notes: C, D, E, F, G, A and B. To create a C major chord, we take the first, third and 5th, which gives us C, E and G. If we take the 5th note G and raise it by a half step, we get G sharp. C augmented therefore has the notes C, E and G sharp. Let's have a listen to C major and C augmented played after one another to appreciate the difference. Augmented chords have an uncomfortable tension to them. They are neither major nor minor and have a strange awkwardness. Because of this, they are most often used as passing chords, leading the listener somewhere else. An interesting feature of the augmented chords is that they cannot be inverted. Inverting a major chord involves playing the 3rd or 5th note as the lowest note or root note instead of the first note. If we take the C augmented chord we heard earlier with the notes C, E and G sharp, we can attempt 2 inversions. With the E as the lowest note, we get E, G sharp and C. This is an E augmented chord. If we use G sharp as the lowest note, we get G sharp, C and E, which is a G sharp augmented chord. So there are actually only 4 sets of notes that create augmented chords. These notes are always 2 whole steps or 4 half steps apart from one another. This symmetry defines the augmented chord. It is also worth knowing that minor chords cannot have an augmented / sharp 5th note. They simply become major chord first inversions. For example, C minor has the notes C, E flat / D sharp and G. If we raise the 5th by a semitone, we get C, E flat / D sharp and A flat / G sharp. This is the first inversion A flat / G sharp major chord. How do we use the augmented chords? As we saw earlier, the C augmented chord has a note in it from outside of the C major scale, so it isn't strictly in the key of C major. However, it has lots of applications in a major key, so we will use it in our C major key examples. One of the most popular ways to use the augmented chord is as the 5 chord. The 5 chord in a major key is often used to take us back to the 1 chord. The augmented chord provides a tenser sound on the 5 chord, which really sounds like it wants to resolve, so when we move to the 1 chord, the resolution is strong and satisfying. This can also add surprise in a song that has the 5 to 1 change earlier, and then in a later repeat uses 5 augmented to 1. Listen out for the 5 augmented chord at work in the second half of this progression. Before we move to the next chord progression, I'd like to thank you for choosing to watch this video. We rely on your kind support to keep the channel running. If you're able to help us, we now have channel memberships and super thanks available. These allow us to keep on making songwriting content that is available to everyone. Click on thanks and join below this video to find out more. The tension in the augmented sharp 5th note means that it wants to resolve up or down a half step. So the chord that follows the augmented chord should have a note in it that provides provides this movement. This introduces the idea of voice leading, where a particular note in a chord is leading us to a note in the next chord. It helps the listener anticipate the next chord. This is usually done in a stepwise motion, which anticipates a note a half step away. Here's a simple example of this using the 1 augmented chord. The sharp 5th note in C augmented is G sharp. The 3rd note of the 4 chord F major is A, so this provides our stepwise resolution. We will also use the 5 augmented chord again as well. This voice leading idea will shape a lot of the augmented chord progressions we create. In this next example, we use the root note of the 6th chord to resolve the augmented 1 chord. We then fall back down to the augmented chord. We can also use different chord types to achieve this same effect. In this example, we never move from the 1 chord. We use the augmented chord again, and this time introduce the major 6th chord. If you want more help with major 6th chords, check out the video in the description below. So our motion is from the 5th note in the 1 chord to the sharp 5th note in the 1 augmented chord, and then to the 6th note in the 1 major 6th chord. We then fall back down to the augmented chord again. If we return to the first progression we discussed, we can use this idea on the 5 chord. We will go from the major 5 to augmented, then to major 6th, and finally to dominant 7th. If you need help with dominant 7th chords, then we have a video in the description. Listen out for the extended stepwise movement in the second half of this progression. In the next chord progressions, we will use the flat 6, flat 7 and flat 3 chords. We have videos in the description which fully explain these chords. Despite using these new chords, our intention is the same, to produce stepwise voice leading with our progressions by using augmented chords. Listen out for this in the examples and see if you can work out what the notes are that are creating this effect in each chord. Check out the playlist on screen now for more chord progressions to use augmented chords with.